Oh, hi. Thanks for watching. My name is Niall, and today I will be talking about my film and Keystone, both titled Where Do We Stand? If at any point you have any questions, contact me. This is my email. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. I will discuss my title in more detail in just a moment, but first, a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which this video was shot is the unceded territories of the Tsilhqot'in Nation and the Humalco First Nations. I am grateful to have the opportunity to work in this blessed territory. I would also like to acknowledge that though I sit here now, my university experience took place on unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Quest University sits on Squamish territory, and I am eternally grateful to have worked on that land. For some of you, that may have been the first time you have heard a land acknowledgement. For others, maybe you have heard them, but you don't quite understand what they mean. Territorial acknowledgements are spoken at the start of events or posted on websites to recognize the history of Indigenous people on that land. They have become significantly more common in the past few years, and for a good reason. However, without an explanation of what a territorial acknowledgement means, these acknowledgements become a mere symbolic gesture. Let me break down a few things. Firstly, territorial acknowledgements like mine recognize Indigenous people as the ancestral occupants of the land we are on. For most of us in North America, our families have only been here for a couple generations. We are not the original inhabitants. The second bit to highlight is the word unceded. This is the bit where most people get caught up, and frankly, I really understand why. Most dictionaries don't even have unceded amongst their definitions. Unceded comes from the cede, meaning to yield or grant, typically by treaty. Unceded territories are lands that were not granted or given to the Canadian government by Indigenous people, and instead were taken from them. Now that I've clarified that, let me discuss the title, Where Do We Stand? I chose this title for many reasons. I wanted people to reflect on this question in a variety of different ways. First and foremost, where do you physically live? Whose lands are you on? Is it your ancestral territory? If not, when did you move here? Over 90% of Canadians are not Indigenous. We are settlers on this land. Interestingly, the word Canada comes from a Mohawk term, Canadiens, meaning they sit in our village. This is the equivalent of a squatter. We are squatters. That is the first reason I chose this title, to encourage people to examine the history of the land they live on. So if you don't know what Indigenous territory you're on, pause the video. Look it up. I'll wait. Yay. Okay. So the second reason I chose this title was a more metaphorical one. Where do we stand in relation to fossil fuel projects? Where do we stand in relation to approval processes? My film explores both of these questions. I chose this title to encourage viewers to ask themselves where they stand. I would like to draw attention to the we in the title. I could have engaged more directly with viewers with a question like, where do I stand? Or where do you stand? However, given that these issues affect us all, I felt that it was much more important to understand where we stand as a community, both locally and globally. Please reflect on that as you move forward. If you are not actively opposing fossil fuels, you are supporting them. There is no neutral. I know this is a bit of a heavy start. However, it is a crucial topic and I feel it needs to be said. If you decide to skip away from this video now, that's okay. Here are your takeaways. Number 1. Canada and the USA have ongoing legacies of colonialism that intimately affect us all. This land you are on was not originally yours, and it was likely taken from Indigenous people. This land is unceded. Number 2. Approval processes for projects such as wood fiber LNG work in favor of those industries and frequently overlook the voices of people and communities. This is what my film is about. I will discuss this more in the next part of the video. Number 3, question things and decide where you stand in relation to them. You cannot be neutral, so learn what you believe and stand up for it. If you decide to stick around for the next part of the video, I will be talking about my documentary film, Where Do We Stand? Thank you for sticking with me. As promised, let me talk about my film now. Well, I made one. It was quite a process, but pretty amazing and really exciting. Since first year, I knew I wanted to create a documentary film as my keystone. Documentary film has the power to convey issues to an audience who may not engage with academic literature or other written forms. They use storytelling to draw the viewer into the research, and I wanted to do that, and so I did. In December of 2018, I started planning my film. Where Do We Stand follows the narrative surrounding wood fiber LNG, a proposed natural gas processing and export facility for Squamish, BC. It focuses on the human elements of the story, such as how it affects locals and what the approval process of the project looked like. There are 3 projects associated with wood fiber. They all rely on one another to go through. Up until now, they have only been looked at individually though. The 3 components are the actual LNG processing facility, or wood fiber, the pipeline expansion project by FortisBC, and the BC hydro lines to the wood fiber site. All 3 components affect Squamish in many different ways. I interviewed Squamish residents on their interactions with the project and on their views on the matter. My interviewees were all amazing, and I'm truly humbled by what they shared with me. I continued to work with many of them after the filming was complete and formed some strong friendships. I don't want to talk too much about the plot of the film because, frankly, I really want you to go see it for yourselves. But what I will say is this. Projects like wood fiber are pushed through by higher levels of government, allowing little space for small communities to have a say in the project. These projects are required to go through 3 levels of environmental assessment, or EA. There's a federal EA, a provincial EA, and a First Nations EA. The First Nations EA is what Canada considers consultation with Indigenous people. The Squamish Nation Band Council agreed to wood fiber provided that they meet 25 conditions as outlined by their EA. It is important to make this distinction between the First Nations people and their Band Council, as many First Nations people do not align with the decisions of band councils. This is what happened with wood fiber, and is also what happened with projects such as the Coastal GasLink pipeline in northern BC. Some of my interviewees in the film expressed frustration that the approval of the wood fiber process did not go to a Squamish Nation referendum, as they feel that had that been the case, wood fiber would not have been approved. Before moving into the final part of this video, here is one last takeaway. The consultation and approval process in Canada are broken. They are in dire need of being overhauled. They do not allow communities to have a substantial say in the approval of projects, despite the fact that at the end of the day, it is small-scale communities that feel the consequences of those projects. You may not agree with me, and so I encourage you, think on it. Before I finish, I would like to acknowledge all the people that made this project possible, from my honest and inspiring mentor, Dr. Fei Shi, to all the backers of my GoFundMe campaign. Production would not have been possible without you. I would also like to thank and acknowledge all the people who taught and supported me. This film is your creation too. Thank you all. And now, I present you with my trailer.
The governments of the day, they just thinking about, the money that they're going to be making. They're not thinking about the impacts.
There are a lot of unanswered questions in the community with regards to the wood fiber LNG project.
We say no! We say no! We say no! We say no!
In recent years, wood fiber has sort of fallen out of communication. This has left a lot of locals with a feeling of helplessness, as if they cannot do anything to affect the project.
Millions of taxpayer dollars have been spent by the federal government.
Is that being consulted with us? Is that saying that we want this project? I would beg to differ. Having it and saying no and just not having it is better for us. We're trailblazing for the rest of Indigenous people. You need to, feel like you're on equal ground with industry or government, right? And to have that leverage, we never used to have that say. Not, it's a view of opinion.
What do we want?
Climate action!
What do we want?
Now! Climate action!
At the end of the day, I feel like the community doesn't necessarily have the voice that it should have in projects like these.